James and Mary Ann Christie. The Company Bay pioneers, whose extended family came out to Otago together on the Phillip Laing in 1848 and made a place for themselves on the east side of Otago Harbour.
James Christie was born in the parish of Mouthil in the Strathearn Valley just southwest of Perth. He was the son of a tenant farmer who died when he was young, after which his mother remarried. In 1839, James was working at nearby Drone as a ploughman when he married Mary Ann Ferguson here in the ancient Church of St John's in Perth, the birthplace of the Scottish Reformation. Mary Ann gave birth just 4 months later, after which the couple had to submit to church censure for antenuptial fornication, sex before marriage. It was only the first of a series of brushes with church discipline that would carry over to Otago and eventually see the Christies sever their Presbyterian links.
More children were born as the young couple moved from place to place and job to job in the uncertain economic conditions of Scotland in the 1840s. They spent part of the time here near Langkawi, where James worked as a bleacher in the extensive bleaching fields that serve this big cotton manufacturing plant behind me. They then moved to Glasgow, losing 2 young daughters to illness in the crowded and insanitary conditions that were common in the city. In considering the possibility of a better future, the Christies already knew something about New Zealand. Mary Ann's older sister had emigrated to Nelson in 1842, and her parents had also applied for passage there, though they had not actually gone. When the Otago Association began its big push to recruit immigrants to fill the Phillip Laing, the Fergusons and the Christies, all by then living in Glasgow, were ideal candidates. Mary Ann's parents lied about their ages to secure free passages. Her brother John Ferguson and his wife and infant son joined them, and so did their sister Jean, her husband William Winton, and their 5 children. Together, this extended family grouping of 16 made up a fair swathe of the passengers on Otago's pioneer immigrant ship. And both Mary Ann and her sister Jean were pregnant when they came aboard ship, delivering their baby soon after arrival in Otago. Another Ferguson brother would come out later, while James Christie's half-brother, Peter Bain, would also come to Otago in the 1850s. James Christie was listed as a sawyer on the passenger list, as was his father-in-law, while John Ferguson Jr. was a joiner. Now, these were perfect skills for pioneers, and the party wasted little time in setting up as sawyers here at Company Bay. They supplied the timber to build the original first church, which John Ferguson was also the contractor for. Family tradition tells of the Christies being dropped off by rowboat and building a primitive whare out of panga and tree ferns here on the edge of Dublin Bay. Mary Ann also delivered a son here in mid-July, and Thomas Burns records him in his baptismal register as born in the bush. James traded sawn timber for his first piece of land and gradually added sections until he'd built up a sizable farm, which he named Airliebank after his home district in Scotland. James Christie proved to be a real entrepreneur in Otago. As well as the family's sawmilling operation, he set up a hotel at Company Bay to cater to the passing harbour traffic, and then when his half-brother Peter Bain arrived in 1856, he took up a piece of land adjacent to James's. Peter was an experienced whisky distiller and set up a concealed still in his cellar, with a secret entrance through the dog kennels and smoke from the still piped up through the main chimney. He also had a 10-gallon cream can with a false bottom, whisky below and cream in the top third. James Christie sold Peter's illicit product at the hotel. Unfortunately, they were caught and prosecuted. Disciplinary action then followed from the church, eventually leading to James's final break with Presbyterianism. By all accounts, James Christie was a very big man, towering over most of his fellow settlers. He was also a very hard man with a hot temper. His wife, Mary Ann, lived somewhat in his shadow, a modest and hard-working Scotswoman who looked after their large family as her primary focus. Together, they forged a very successful life in Otago, leaving behind the economic uncertainty of rural Scotland and the harsh environment of industrial Glasgow to become prosperous landowners. When they died in 1893 and 1895 respectively, they were buried here on their own land at the Airliebank Cemetery, one of the few private burial grounds in New Zealand reserved exclusively for the family of James and Mary Ann Christie.